The art of storytelling gives us the possibility of sharing ideas that are important to us and starting conversations about them. The team behind Zootopia knew that, and they took inspiration from previous Disney movies like Robin Hood, which was a classic film featuring a fox that can walk and talk like a human, to create a modern frame of a world where predator and prey have found a way to live together. But that doesn't mean that it's a perfect society. In fact, it is filled with bias. The movie was a project that lasted almost 5 years and had a team of 550 people working on it. They had to do a lot of research, but from the classic way of doing animation in the Animation Research Library from Disney and from real life animals and their behavior, to do that they traveled to Africa and observed various wild species.
For Zootopia, the process of filmmaking was broken into two parts: development and production. Development is the planning and writing of the history, and production which is actually making the film. These two parts overlap a little because while the initial idea for the history is being fleshed out, the artists in the visual development team are working on what this new fantasy world is going to look like. They created 3D models and the writing to move them around, the fur of the animals, the clothing, and the environment. Then they start building the shoots according to the storyboard, placing the camera, and starting doing the animation, giving light to the characters. When a lot of this is done, they start with the lighting to add realism. Character design is about the making the animals in the field feel like real people who go through many different emotions and live their own stories. The people working on these characters have to keep in mind what works for animation but also what is important for design. The animators are actors in their own way. They have to craft a performance that seems believable and find the best way to convey emotions so the audience can connect to a character. The story is the most important part of a movie because it's the soul of the film. It leaves a message for the audience. If you have really beautiful animation but about the story, the movie is not going to be good. The team has to work fast, ideas come and go very quickly, so they have to get comfortable with the idea that their work might get thrown away, so they can see what's work and what doesn't as quickly as possible. They create various versions of the movie, testing out ideas and screening the storyboard, so they can say how the story is progressing. The fundamental part of this history is these two groups that assume something about somebody else, and how this affects the society they live in. Bias is to feel or show inclination or prejudice for against something, and is difficult subject to talk about because it's universal and exists everywhere. Prejudice comes from the way people are taught to be biased. It's in the culture that teaches people how they are and what their place in the world is since they were children, and the social system they participate in.
The filmmakers created a movie around the idea of a world that was broken, with clear injustice for one group. They were trying to show this through tame colors that the predator characters would have to use in order to keep their emotions in check, because they were perceived as more unstable and dangerous. They got rid of this idea because it made this fantastic world less fun since the beginning. Instead, they were replaced with stereotypes. There are two main characters in this movie, Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde. Judy is a bunny that wants to become a police officer in order to break the boundaries of what a bunny can do. Nick, on the other hand, is a fox that follows what everyone expects of him. He's clever and a trickster. Nick was supposed to be the main character, but after a lot of screening and exploration of the story, they decided that it made it too dark and complicated. People weren't enjoying the film as much as the creators wanted, so they decided to put Hobbs as the main character. She added some positivity and color to the movie. She is also put in a box by society. She seems as a harmless, tiny animal, and has her own bias she has to work through when she confronts her own view of the world. thanks to Nick. Storytelling is really important to shine a light on certain topics that might be difficult to discuss and give positivity, hopefulness, and optimism into the world through these stories. They teach us values and important lessons. Animation is a great medium because it can represent literally anything, and if you have a strong idea and a concept, you could bring a wonderful story to the screen. It's also a medium that people of all ages can find interesting. Watching movies can positively affect the way kids perceive their surroundings and the relationships they have with the people around them. Everybody wants to feel accepted and supported, and these kind of stories, despite being set in a fantasy world, represent real-life problems in a creative way that allows us to question our own thoughts and behaviors.